The 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show was a major breakthrough in the TMNT franchise, as it was the first time ever that the Turtles were seen in anything other than the comics. It's easy to say the series was a success too, as toys, movies, and video games soon exploded onto the scene thanks to the popularity of the show. So today, we're taking a look at the show and seeing what made it great by recapping the entirety of the original Turtles series from start to finish.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, heroes in a half shell, turtle power.
Before we dive in, let's meet our classic characters, starting with Splinter, the ninja warrior turned rat mutant. He's lovable, he's intelligent, and he just so happens to be the one training our mutant heroes and blessing them with the undying knowledge of the Foot Clan. Next, we have the iconic Turtles, of course. Leonardo, the teacher, Donatello, the genius, Raphael, the tough loner, and Michelangelo, the go-with-the-flow comedic relief. Let's not forget April, our favorite human friend. She works at Channel 6 News and is continuously trying to clear the Turtles' name, wanting other humans to see them as the good guys that she sees them as. Now, when it comes to villains, we've got a couple noticeable ones that you should definitely know about. First of all, we have Shredder. His beef with the Turtles goes way back. I'm talking way back. He had beef with Splinter when Splinter was a human and had his own plans of taking over the Foot Clan. We also have Krang, an alien life form from Dimension X who's incredibly hell-bent on taking over the Earth, continuously fighting the Turtles due to their love of Earth and crime fighting. You'll hear of more characters as we progress, but for now, let's get right into the first episode. The first episode starts off strong, with the audience meeting April, the Channel 6 News reporter, getting chased by a gang of ninjas through the sewers of New York. She stumbles across 4 large talking turtles who come to her rescue, easily reprimanding the thugs chasing her, after which they take her to the underground lair, where she meets what seems to be their leader, a large talking rat.
Perhaps some food would aid the young lady's powers of speech.
Here, she learns of their story and how they came to be. Once upon a time, there lived a ninja named Homodo Yoshi, who was banished from his ninja clan titled The Foot after a misunderstanding involving him trying to save his sensei from a stab wound. He was banished, while another student took over and turned The Foot into a criminal army. After Homodo was banished, he began roaming the sewers of America, trying to make peace with his life as a broken man. It was there that he found the 4 turtles and befriended them. Eventually, he found them covered in a goo-like substance, even touching it himself, which turned out to be a powerful mutagen that turns you into a mutant of the last animal you'd been in contact with. This is why the turtles turned relatively human and the sensei turned rat. Homodo decided to name the turtles after his favorite painters and teach them the ways of ninjutsu in order for them to embrace their freakiness and potentially help the outside world. April's convinced that the turtles must be the ones responsible for the sudden theft around town, as the reports say that it's done by ninjas. However, the turtles insist that this isn't true, so the two groups decide to strike a deal. April doesn't tell the world about the turtles and tries her best to find a cure for Homodo on the surface, and they'll try to catch the real ninja thieves and turn them into her so she can report on it. Not long after they search for the ninjas, but once April catches a lead, she's swiftly kidnapped. The turtles go looking for her, only to find her tied up on the roof of a building. Suddenly, they are attacked by the so-called ninjas that happen to be literal robots, seemingly remote controlled by none other than Oroku Saki, the ninja that turned the Foot into an evil clan. After a brief battle, the turtles escape. However, Homodo and Oroku both know the other is in town, as Homodo recognizes the Foot uniform on the robot, and Oroku recognizes the unmistakable technique taught to both of them back in the day. The battle has just begun. Also, side note, if I was April, I would have been scarred for life after that first Foot Clan attack. Then she meets a bunch of mutant turtles, a mutant rat, and then gets kidnapped all in one night. Yeah, I'd probably have a heart attack. Shout out to April. You are strong as heck. We properly meet a formidable foe in the next episode, Shredder, or at least a familiar villain going under a different name. I'll give you a hint. It's Oroku, who's now known as Shredder. The episode begins with the turtles helping April find a secret base called the Technodrome, which is allegedly where the robotic ninjas came from in the previous episode. However, when they reach the site where it's supposed to be, they end up finding tracks as if it's able to move. The episode then cuts to Shredder talking to a freaky looking guy that we soon learn to be named Krang, an alien creature hell-bent on releasing his subjects from Dimension X onto the Earth. During their conversation, we learn that Shredder is the one who was responsible for the weird goo that was supposed to only transform Splinter. However, in doing so, he also made the Ninja Turtles. Upon this realization, he comes up with the brilliant idea to turn his own subjects into mutants, hopefully able to defeat the Turtles in doing so. Once back at their lair, the Turtles talk to Splinter and find that he believes the leader of the robots just so happens to be Oroku, and agrees to help the Turtles find the Technodrome in hopes of shutting down his operations. Meanwhile, Shredder recruits 2 gang members, Bebop and Rocksteady, to undergo a mutagen experiment where they attempt to fuse them with a rhino and a warthog in order to get even with the Turtles. The experiment works, and wowie, they literally ruin their lives. I mean, look at those guys.
Jump for it! You idiots!
Anyway, they're successful in capturing Splinter after April informs the Turtles of a potential zoo break-in somehow being correlated to Shredder and their schemes. Once inside the Technodrome, the Turtles briefly battle AI until the real threat emerges, Shredder himself. After a brief talk, we all know that man loves hearing the sound of his own voice, yet another battle ensues. This time mutants against mutants, ending in the Turtles whipping up some BBQ. The episode ends with Bebop and Rocksteady being put behind bars, the zoo kind. However, a stray AI motorcycle breaks them out and takes them back to Shredder, much to their dismay. We meet the hot-rodding teenagers from Dimension X in this episode after they barge through a makeshift portal that Shredder made in hopes to gain better technology. These teenagers are a race of aliens called Neutrino and are considered to be the most common alien race in Dimension X. They pop through the portal in their flying cars and flee into the city. Meanwhile, the Turtles have just finished creating their turtle van made out of old parts, mostly consisting of Baxter's failed experiment attempts. Suddenly, the Turtles bear witness to the Neutrinos flying out of the subway and decide to follow them, thinking that they are working for Shredder. The Turtles catch up to the Neutrinos and actually find out that they don't work for Shredder, and are instead considered to be delinquents in Dimension X, since they love to have fun and dislike war. I guess I'm a delinquent too, I guess. Because of this, the two groups get along and end up going to an arcade together. Suddenly, the foot soldiers appear and attempt to capture the Neutrinos. However, they, along with the Turtles, are able to escape. The Neutrinos inform the Turtles that Krang used to be much more powerful. However, he lost his body, and now it's just a brain. Splinter arrives and explains that he believes Shredder is getting his advanced technology from Dimension X and asks the Turtles to banish Krang back to where he belongs. The Neutrinos join in as well and are successful in their battle. The episode ends with the Neutrinos going back to their home and the Turtles drifting to sleep after another hard day's work. How about that? The Turtles have friends across universes. This later episode begins with us finding out that the general public has seen multiple sightings of the Turtles, with none of them being positive. People are scared and confused by them. However, April is determined to clear their good name, intending on publishing the real story behind them. Meanwhile, Shredder's attempting to lure the Turtles and Splinter to his lair, as he allegedly has his hands on a device that can transform mutants back into their natural form once more. However, Splinter is forced to go alone on his journey, as if the Turtles are hit with such a machine that they could potentially turn back into their original turtle forms. However, the Turtles aren't going to leave Splinter completely empty-handed, and decide to tag along to cause a distraction. Once there, we find that Shredder has created some sort of robotic suit equipped to carry Krang. Once awoken, Krang is seen contacting his people from the evil Dimension X, ready and excited to unleash his army upon the Earth. However, his plans are reprimanded when the Turtles notice him and chase him up into the streets of New York City. The Turtles briefly battle Krang and are successful. However, Krang ends up being able to flee back to the Technodrome. There, Splinter is able to destroy the ray, capable of turning the Turtles back into humans. However, also destroying potentially the only device that could have saved him from being a rat hybrid thing. The episode ends with the Turtles tricking Krang and Shredder into Dimension X, letting Earth be free of them, even if only for a little while, as Splinter is not convinced that this will keep the two villains at bay for long. Immediately following the last episode, we have the first episode of Season 2, Return of the Shredder. It begins with Shredder's POV being stuck in Dimension X, wallowing over his latest defeat with Krang, who's more than happy to be back in his dimension where he rules over all. After enough whining, Krang eventually agrees to send Shredder back to Earth.
Business.
But only after he promises to end the Turtles once and for all. However, once on Earth, he realizes that not only does he not have any henchmen, but no help at all, as Krang claims he isn't worthy of any assistance from them until he proves himself more worthy. So, Shredder decides to do what Shredder does best, take over an innocent dojo and corrupt the minds of young children. After easily completing his first task, he decides to recruit Baxter Stockman, a local scientist who was a measly bystander during a Turtles fight. However, growing a grudge against them in the process as well, he's in jail now. Now, with Baxter and the students of the dojo on his side, in what he now calls the Crooked Ninja Turtle Gang, since he forces them to dress up like turtles and commit robberies around town in order to frame the real turtles. Okay, where are these kids' parents? Shredder is now ready to take on the town. Shredder's first task that he appoints Baxter is to make the ultimate rat catcher, whatever that means. Later, we find that Baxter was capable of capturing Splinter, and when the Turtles go to rescue him, they're reprimanded by the gang of fake turtles. The real Turtles easily defeat them, and are also successful in rescuing Splinter, smashing the rat catcher, and proving Shredder's plan faulty on many different levels. The episode ends with Shredder slithering away yet again. However, the fake ninja gang is taken in by the police, and the real Turtles' names are cleared. April's even able to call them all heroes on television. This later episode of Season 2 begins with betrayal, when Shredder is shown shoving Baxter into Dimension X in return for his beloved Bebop and Rocksteady.
Good riddance to bad rubbish.
But Master!
Meanwhile, April is given a strange plant, which unbeknownst to her is dangerous, until Splinter, panicked, asks her if she sniffed it, and she answers by fainting.
Feels so strange.
April!
Splinter explains to the turtles that the only way to cure her is to make an antidote by nightfall, as the poison from the plane is extremely fatal. Back in Dimension X, Baxter gets transformed into a massive fly after an experiment goes haywire. Infuriated, he flies back to Earth, hellbent on revenge. Once there, Shredder is able to manipulate him into thinking that his fly transformation was somehow the turtles' fault, even though he had absolutely nothing to do with it. Baxter does end up fighting the turtles during the retrieval of the antidote. However, they are successful in their battle, and the episode ends with them being able to feed the antidote to April before it's too late. This later episode begins with Turtles doing something they have never done before, using the mutagen agent that turned them all into hybrids in hopes that if they use it twice, it could turn Splinter back into a human. It appears to work. However, once he leaves to go live on the streets again, the Turtles become extremely depressed and anxious, thinking that Splinter might leave them all forever.
He'll be back?
You sure? I mean, he's human now.
While grappling with their newfound world-shattering thoughts, they have to deal with Shredder yet again, as he attempts to open a portal to Dimension X. Splinter, as a human, realizes that he doesn't quite like humans as they continuously disappoint him. During his revelations, he ends up fleeing back to the sewers, not only to go back to the Turtles, but also because the mutagen ended up not fully working, and he began turning back into a rat. He returns just in time, though, to save the Turtles from Shredder and stop the opening of Dimension X. However, because the dimension wasn't open properly, a different dimension opens where a scary alien-looking creature attacks them instead. However, it's no match for the Turtles, and the episode ends happily with April safe and the Turtles getting their sensei back. Catwoman from Channel 6 begins with April going on her own side quest, getting closer to Shredder, and eventually winding up on the Matter panel with the stray cat.
What happened?
However, she quickly realizes that she has merged with the animal, and slowly but surely begins transforming into a full-fledged cat. Her best friend, Irma, quickly realizes what's going on, and alerts the Turtles of the situation right after April, as a cat, escapes the building.
Something happened to me. Meow!
Oh my gosh. It's turned you into a cat.
Shredder gets his hands on her, and puts a mind-controlling collar on Cat April, ordering her to lead them to the Turtles.
I command you to hunt down Splinter.
Yes, master.
While also having a cheetah associate. Okay? Once with the Turtles' lair, Splinter is able to get through to April, even though she's the mind-controlling collar on, and eventually the Turtles slash it off of her, and also take care of her larger, more threatening feline friend. Shredder and the others are suddenly dealing with bigger problems for themselves, as they just barely escape an explosion. Meanwhile, April eventually turns back into a human, as the effects of the transformation are revealed to be temporary. Season 3, Episode 1 begins directly after the last episode of Season 2, which consisted of the Turtles sending Shredder and Krang all the way down to the Earth's surface. The Turtles are convinced that Shredder is no longer a threat to them, and begin slacking off considerably more than ever before. Splinter, upset with them, orders them to train twice as hard, since they're acting all big and tough now. However, this causes a rift between them, as instead of being reachable when called for help, the Turtles are found in a movie theater, seemingly ignoring their duties and acting like angsty teenagers. Because of this, Splinter is forced to fight the crime himself, resulting in him being set into a coma-like state due to one of Shredder's machines. Also, are we shocked that Shredder somehow returned? No. However, the Turtles were when they came home to a helpless Splinter and newfound guilt over their angsty teenager decisions. The Turtles go off on their own to find the device that hurt Splinter in order to reverse the effects. In doing so, another battle ensues, ending with the Turtles winning yet again, and Krang reprimanding Shredder more harshly than normal, to the point where Shredder ends up silencing Krang using a large metal panel.
What are you doing? Stop!
The Turtles learn to appreciate their training, along with Splinter, as they reflect on Shredder and Krang, still being alive, even after all they put them through. Harsher controversy arises after the Turtles appear on the hit TV show On Trial. The host, Kettleman, is a massive jerk, and consistently calls the Turtles out, claiming that they are no good. It gets so bad that when the Turtles try to stop some robbers, instead of being praised for helping the city, they're chased by an angry mob back down into the sewers. In order to protect their reputation, they ask April to use her Channel 6 capabilities to sway Kettleman into letting bring them onto the show. However, once there, they have a hard time getting a word in. Kettleman is bad-mouthing them intensely. Meanwhile, Krang decides to come up to Earth's surface himself in order to get rid of the turtles, and even manages to disrupt their time on TV. The turtles even save Kettleman from Krang. However, this still doesn't help their case because Kettleman says he has a certain reputation to uphold, so he plans on still bad-mouthing them even though they literally saved his life. This guy is to the turtles as J. Jonah Jameson is to Spider-Man. What a bully. The old switcheroo begins with Splinter deciding to go on a mission with the turtles in place of Donatello, since his arm has gotten badly injured earlier that day. Eventually, Splinter gets hit by a beam along with Shredder, causing the two to switch bodies. After retreating, Splinter is incredibly aware of his situation, while Shredder seems less than interested in getting back into his original body. After a meetup, the turtles are convinced of what the real Splinter is saying and agree to meet him back in the lab where the initial explosion took place. Once there, they set off the machine that caused the beam in the first place, which caused the entire building to catch on fire. The episode ends with confirmation of the successful switchback. The fifth turtle begins with the turtles encountering a little boy named Zack, who's dressed up as them, trying to fight crime. He's a huge fan, and even manages to find a way into their secret lair. Shredder, of course, catches wind of this and decides to send minions over in hopes to kidnap him. However, the turtles are good friends to have around, and they fight off the attackers easily at first until they too get a little tied up. Eventually, Krang's secret plan to raise the Technodrome is thwarted, and they plummet back to Earth's core, leaving the turtles to rethink and regroup. Considering how close the Technodrome was to coming back to Earth's surface, the episode ends with the turtles giving Zack his own little turtle calling device.
You're the only fan we need, and we want to show our appreciation for your help.
So that they can either help him or he can help them whenever time starts to suck. The Rat King begins with April being tasked with figuring out what's going on with the rat population in the city, as her boss got attacked by rats earlier that day.
Yeah! Scat, come on, get out of here, beat it, would you?
She ends up writing a not-so-flattering article about the rats of the town because of this. Little did she know that this would cause her to be kidnapped by the Rat King himself, who appears to be a rat-crazed psycho man who can control rats using his special flute. When the turtles realize that April has been napped, they, along with Splinter, begin searching for her. However, when Splinter hears the strange flute melody, he begins acting strange. He begins attacking his turtles, eventually breaking a pipe in the commotion, causing him to regain his consciousness due to the water splash. Splinter doesn't have much time to be ashamed of his actions as soon as the Rat King shows himself. During the chaos, Irma is found, as she was also captured due to her looking for April. After she escapes, a bomb goes off, and the ceiling caves in, separating the turtles and the Rat King. The episode ends with the turtles getting a warning that they will most likely encounter the Rat King again in the future. This later episode of Season 3, Take Me to Your Leader, begins with Leonardo having a nightmare, causing him to believe that he's unfit to be the leader of the turtles. Because of this, he decides to leave the lair. The turtles quickly realize Leonardo's departure, and they have no choice but to appoint a new leader, Michelangelo, in his absence. During a typical battle with Krang and Shredder, Leonardo decides at the last minute not to leave the city and his brothers behind, as he knows deep down he's just being selfish, and is only actually leaving because he wouldn't be able to handle seeing something bad happen to his brothers. However, in leaving, he may just be putting them in grave danger than they would have been if he was still sticking around. Leonardo shows up for his brothers and easily defeats the robot that was attacking them, seemingly restoring his confidence and allowing him to seize the title of leader once again. The episode ends with his brothers welcoming him back, and I'm having a heart-to-heart with Michelangelo, as he's the only other turtle who understands how it feels to have the responsibility of leader. This chaotic episode begins with Michelangelo being forced into an intervention regarding his overall pizza intake, as he has been overeating to the point of it being concerning, as he doesn't just eat his own pizza, he eats all of his brother's pizzas as well. Meanwhile, Shredder's attempting to create a Michelangelo clone. However, his machine goes haywire, and it zaps him in the process, causing him to take on the personality of Michelangelo.
Pizza? No way, dude. I crave pizza no more.
He shows up at the turtles' lair like nothing's wrong, and they quickly realize that he doesn't know that he's Shredder. That is, until they call him Shredder and he suddenly reverts back until they say Michelangelo again.
It's Shredder! Where?
While all of this is unfolding, the real Michelangelo is shown going to his favorite pizza restaurant while the orders are soda since he isn't supposed to be having any pizza. When all of a sudden, he's captured by Bebop and Rocksteady and taken to their hideout. During all of this, Donatello notices a disc that falls out of Shredder's pocket. On the back, which are his evil plans, which currently consist of creating a Michelangelo clone. In a panic, the turtles look for Michelangelo as they haven't seen him in a while and decide to check out his favorite pizza place. Unfortunately, he'd already been taken away when they arrive. The turtles somehow get caught in a bunch of pizza cheese. Meanwhile, Shredder is unfazed until he himself says the word Shredder on accident. He was referring to the cheese shredder.
There's some cheese left in this shredder. Shredder, shredder, shredder.
When he does this, he regains his old personality. He leaves the turtles and returns to his lair only to find the real Michelangelo tied up. He's excited. However, he realizes that he's missing his disc and goes back to the pizza shop to demand it back, to which the turtles easily turn him back into Michelangelo without him knowing. They then devise a plan. They go back into the cheese and turn him back into Shredder in order to sneak out of the cheese after he gets his disc and follow him back to his lair. Once there, and he uses the disc, he'll be bombarded by a bunch of different holographics of Michelangelo. After the turtles had reprogrammed his precious little disc, during the chaos, they'll be able to rescue Michelangelo and foil all of Shredder's plans in the process. The episode ends with a confused Bebop and Rocksteady taking Shredder back to Krang, as they can't tell if it's him or a turtle in disguise, and the turtles return home happy, allowing Michelangelo to eat as many pizzas as he wants. An interesting romance blooms in Beware the Lotus, when a new ninja is introduced to Shredder, as Krang has hired the Lotus in order to replace Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady. Enraged, Shredder sets out to capture the turtles before she can in order to prove his worth, but as per usual, he isn't that successful. Meanwhile, Leonardo becomes entranced by the Lotus and develops an uber crush on her, much to the dismay of his brothers, as he's clearly not on their side. Later in the episode, however, she does end up turning on Krang when he disrespects her, assuming she's in cahoots with Leonardo. She fights Krang, helping out the turtles and foiling his plans. The episode ends with the turtles offering Lotus a spot with them. However, she isn't quite convinced that she wants to be fighting for good, as there's not much gold in goodness.
Sorry, turtles, but there is not much gold in goodness.
However, she's shown sending Leonardo a pizza with a lotus on it. When he looks for her, she's shown saying that someday, maybe, she and Leonardo will be fighting for the same side. This later episode begins with Shredder proclaiming that he has a way to turn Bebop and Rocksteady into the ultimate ninja warriors. Meanwhile, Splinter is watching the TV with the turtles when an ancient relic is said to be on display, a figure named Shibano-sama, who is the original leader of the Foot Clan. Splinter, in a hurried state, is determined to make it to the statue before Shredder. However, he's too late. When they get near, they're bombarded with a gas-like substance that infiltrates the turtles and causes Splinter to forget who he is.
Who am I? Who are you?
Upon awakening the statue, Shredder claims to be the real leader of the Foot Clan and orders Shibano to train his minions. The turtles object, but Splinter is of no use, as he has no idea what's going on or what they're talking about. The turtles take him back to the lair in order to hopefully jog his memory, but also give him a memory restoration potion, although it may take a while to set in. Slowly but surely, Splinter begins to remember, and the turtles are convinced if Splinter shows up and shows off a secret, super powerful ninja move, then Shibano will abandon Shredder, as he will know that Splinter is the true leader of the Foot Clan. When Splinter finally regains his full memory, he hurries off to demonstrate the move, defeating Shredder and turning Shibano on him, Bebop, and Rocksteady. The episode ends with Splinter ordering Shibano back to rest, leaving the turtles and Splinter alone in their lair and happy once again. In this episode, we're introduced to Usagi Yojimbo, a ninja-like bunny creature that the turtles found by mistake when meddling with the dimensional portal at the same time that Shredder was, by coincidence. Usagi jumps into the portal during a battle and is greeted by the turtles, who decide to take him around town and show him to April and their other friends, as he won't be able to go home to his own dimension anytime soon, considering them finding his dimension in the first place was like 101 chance. Meanwhile, weird stuff goes down in town. Usagi eventually wanders off on his own after a fight with the foot soldiers. However, he ends up in a bunny-themed restaurant and decides to fight the manager after thinking that people of his kind are being put to work. The turtles find him and take him away, only for him to get involved in yet another strange situation, this time having to take care of a dragon problem. Obento, the owner of said dragon, decides to take custody of Usagi until his home dimension is found, as he greatly appreciated the help with his pet dragon. Usagi Come Home begins with Shredder kidnapping Usagi and threatening him with the life of poor Obento. If Usagi doesn't help him get the turtles, then he cannot promise Obento safety, leaving Usagi no choice but to succumb to his orders. Later, the turtles have a lead on finding Usagi's home dimension, so they set out to find him, only to get attacked. The turtles are confused, but eventually figure out what's happening. They devise a plan, and Usagi pretends to bring the turtles, seemingly at the command of Shredder. However, at the last minute, he sets them free. Shredder then tells Usagi that he was never going to release Obento anyway, and planned on keeping him to be a ninja for him forever. That is, until the turtles back Usagi up in return and attack Shredder.
We'll be blown to bits.
The villains are escaping!
The episode ends with Usagi, Obento, and all the turtles fleeing and successfully making it out alive. Following that last episode we didn't cover, Krang and Shredder get the Technodrome up and running finally after their many attempts. The big blowout begins with the turtles and the military frantically trying to stop the Technodrome from stealing all the electricity and creating a massive portal from Earth to Dimension X.
An entire armada of starfighters is ready to attack Earth the moment it comes through the portal.
Krang's General Trag, alerts him that they are ready to attack Earth. However, the turtles end up using a massive missile to shoot the Technodrome off of Earth's surface and into Dimension X once again. Once there, we're shown Krang's army attacking the Technodrome, mistaking it to be Earth, and essentially destroying most of the Technodrome in the process, leaving Krang, Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady to be stranded in Dimension X. The episode ends with the city praising the turtles for saving them, and the turtles along with Splinter return home after yet another fun adventure. Following the previous episode, Season 4 starts off with Plan 6 from Outer Space. Begins with Krang and Shredder sending Bebop and Rocksteady back to Earth disguised as humans in hopes to trap the turtles inside the Channel 6 news building and transporting the entire building back to Dimension X using trans-dimensional thrusters. Once on Earth, Bebop and Rocksteady get hired as janitors for Channel 6. However, they get distracted from the plan because they thought they could be better dancing potatoes than the previous dancing potatoes. Long story short, April easily figures out who they are,
Bebop and Rocksteady!
resulting in them capturing April and attempting to thrust the Channel 6 building into Dimension X with her in it, possibly luring the turtles to their location as well. Splinter radios to the turtles that April has been captured, and they hurry over to Channel 6 just in time to shut down the thrusters and foil their big napping plan once and for all. We are introduced to Shredder's mom, Miyoko, in this episode after she hears of her son's master plan. Krang and Shredder had asked the governments of the world to surrender to them. However, none of them agreed, so they decided to heat up the Earth with ungodly temperatures after shining it with a mirror from Dimension X. Miyoko excitedly leaves her retirement home for villains in order to join her son and help him on his evil endeavors. Meanwhile, as the entire world has heard of the heat threat from Dimension X, the turtles, along with pilot Yoger, have volunteered to fly to Dimension X and break the mirror that will allow the heat beam to fire at Earth. Once there, they're bombarded with booby traps brought to you by Miyoko, who continues to be a nuisance up until her weakness is revealed, her feelings towards Yoger. Knowing this, Yoger decides to attempt to seduce Miyoko, which unsurprisingly works, allowing the turtles enough time to thwart their master plans. The episode ends with Yoger and the turtles escaping back to Earth, leaving Miyoko without a lover. Not only that, but Shredder decides to teleport her back to the retirement home for villains as she keeps treating him like a little boy still. Why do I feel so bad for her? In this later episode, April and her co-worker and rival reporter, Vernon, are looking for a hot story for Channel 6 as there haven't been any Shredder and Krang takeover attempts, and the city's been pretty quiet as of late. All of a sudden, the turtles are broadcasted a message coming from Shredder to meet them at the south side of town in order for one last final battle. The turtles accept, although they are skeptical. Vernon, April, and Ermel go as well, again trying to get their perfect scoop of the story. However, little do they know that Shredder is actually planning on using a teleportation device to get all the turtles to Dimension X so that he and Krang can defeat them once and for all. Unfortunately for Shredder, he ends up capturing Vernon, April, and Irma along with Raphael and Michelangelo instead of all the turtle targets. The 5 that were captured end up making it out of the Technodrome and picked up by their neutrino friends that they made a while back in the series. Donatello is freaked out about his brothers and his friends being stranded in Dimension X, and he frantically gets his own teleporter working in order to get them all back. However, Vernon, being stupid, leaves the group and is roaming Dimension X trying to look for a more exciting news story, as if fighting for his life isn't exciting enough. A fight between Shredder and the turtles inevitably breaks out, resulting in the turtles and their friends, along with Vernon, barely escaping and making it back safely through Donatello's portal.
See? We made it in plenty of time.
Meanwhile, Krang's plan backfires, and the volcano they originally decided to blow up in order to further free the Technodrome and potentially harm the turtles ends up submerging the Technodrome further down into the ground, and encased by magma, and stuck more than ever before. The episode ends with the turtles celebrating their successes. However, Splinter warns that Krang being trapped in Dimension X has hardly ever stopped him before, leaving the audience knowing that eventually the formidable foes will show up again. In this rather strange episode, the turtles receive a message from Splinter, telling them that he's resigning as their teacher and that they all should choose to go their separate ways. Extremely distraught, the turtles live their own lives, claiming that they will meet up again in the future. Not long after we are shown Raphael singing telegrams to children,
Happy birthday, dear Rodney, you're our favorite son. Happy birthday.
Leonardo starting up his own fitness center, Donatello running a fix-it shop, and Michelangelo running several different cooking shows. That fits. We also see that the Rat King is back with his antics, but this time he's not alone. He's also working with Leatherhead, who's this huge alligator mutant that also seeks revenge on the turtles. With the turtles separated, they plan on taking over the city, but first, Leatherhead plans on getting rid of them once and for all. Each respected turtle is shown being captured from their new lives and taken to the Rat King's lair. However, April becomes aware of this and goes to warn Donatello, only to see his shop exploding. She follows the clues to the lair and is saved by Splinter, who just so happens to be with Leonardo, the turtle he had warned before all hell broke loose. They easily reprimand the Rat King and Leatherhead after Splinter controls the rats to attack and reveals that the whole thing was his master plan, and the only way they would have been able to defeat him is if they pretend to be split up, leaving the Rat King and Leatherhead in shock and confusion as they all ran out of their own lair. The episode ends with Splinter emphasizing how important it is that the turtles stick together and congratulating them on a hard day's win. Season 5 starts off strong with My Brother the Bad Guy. It begins with Shredder's fingerprints being found at a crime scene in Tokyo where he stole an ancient diary of the Kojima brothers. Shredder's younger brother, Kazuo Saki, just so happens to be a Tokyo policeman and also happens to be the one who finds his brother's fingerprints. Awkward. Kazuo makes his journey all the way to America where he runs into the turtles. He decides to team up with them after learning of their beef with Shredder.
As in Orokusaki? That's Shredder's last name.
Shredder's name?
Meanwhile, we learn that Shredder is using the diary because inside of it is the knowledge of the 3 most powerful ninjas of all time. He plans on using this knowledge to make real-life holograms that could take down the turtles once and for all. Bebop and Rocksteady are ordered to place the holograms in a place where the turtles will definitely find it, so they agree on the sewers, leading to their favorite pizzeria. The turtles do eventually get attacked by the holograms, causing Kazuyo to flee, determined to stop his brother. It's when he gets to Shredder that we find that he plans on using a nuclear fusion reactor in order to use magnets to pull the Technodrome to Earth from Dimension X. Shredder is also successful in handcuffing his younger brother onto a lead pipe right in the way of the Technodrome's path, wanting him to be crushed by it. Back with the turtles, Splinter shows up after sensing that his turtles were in trouble. However, it's nearly impossible to defeat the holograms. That is, until Donatello finds the projector and smashes it in, successfully releasing them from the wrath of the Kojima brothers. The turtles go to assist Kazuyo, and are successful in the sense that a stray bullet ended up releasing him from his chains, allowing him to throw Shredder into a portal to the Technodrome. However, the Technodrome loses its gravity from Dimension X and is sucked into Earth's atmosphere during the chaos. The turtles, along with Kazuyo, are able to shut down the Technodrome in time for it to crash land somewhere deep in the Arctic. The episode ends with Kazuyo's departure. Beforehand, he in-depth expresses to the turtles that he hopes when his older brother eventually makes it out of the icy Arctic that he'll become a more warm, well-rounded individual. The next episode begins with Michelangelo having a strange nightmare, where he notices a little lizard in the turtles' pile of goo whenever there are babies being turned into mutants. However, a strange dark figure picks up the lizard and takes him away from the turtles. He wakes up in a sweat and decides to go to the sewer alley in search of the area from his dream. Suddenly, he's interrupted by sounds from above.
That's a burglar alarm!
He finds that there's a robbery taking place. The robbers escape, however. One of them decides to chase down Michelangelo. He finds that the robber's name is Mondo Gecko, who appears to be a giant mutant lizard.
Mondo Gecko's the name, and stealing's my game!
Michelangelo is perplexed by him, as he seems extremely familiar to him, but he doesn't know why. Mondo ends up attacking Michelangelo and tying him up before he escapes the sewers. However, Michelangelo doesn't go down that easily, and releases himself from his ties. He follows Mondo's tracks, which lead to an abandoned warehouse where we are able to see the other robbers along with their leader, who's currently bossing them around. He goes by Mr. X. Eventually, Michelangelo is caught by the thugs. However, later on in the episode, Mondo saves Michelangelo. Even though he could have easily just let him die, when he's ordered to get rid of Michelangelo, you can tell that he's reluctant. Michelangelo ends up using a hypnotizing technique on him and asks what he remembers from his childhood, to which he responds that he remembers being a little lizard in a pile of goo with a bunch of other turtles. However, he was taken away by someone and then raised to be a villain. Michelangelo wakes Mondo up and informs him that they went through the same thing as him. He isn't inherently bad. He was just raised that way by Mr. X. Mr. X comes back to find Michelangelo still alive, and he frustratingly decides to kill him himself. However, the rest of the turtles come to the rescue, as Michelangelo had given them his location earlier that day. The episode ends with Mondo deciding to quit his life of crime and move in next door to the turtles. This later episode begins with Donatello getting fed up with having to always fix everything in the lair. To battle this struggle, he decides to create his own clone. He begins by testing it out on a rat. However, the rat ends up having some of Donatello's brains and even his voice.
What a hair-raising experience. I don't believe it. I can actually talk. I just wish I had a more macho voice.
The rat ends up getting discovered by none other than the Rat King. The Rat King takes him and the possibility of creating clones to the local mafia boss, Pinky McFingers, and convinces him that they could potentially take over the world using cloning technology. Meanwhile, Donatello is successful in eventually creating his own clone. However, his clone proves to be way smarter than he is, and decides not to do any of the fixing or chore work that Donatello asks of him. Instead, he fights Donatello and locks him away, proving to not only have extra smarts, but extra knowledge and ninja skills as well. Eventually, Pinky McFingers captures the clone Donatello while he's wandering the sewers, and plans on using him to his own advantage, betraying the Rat King and going solo. The clone Donatello agrees to make a clone machine for Pinky, claiming that they could potentially infest the streets with thousands of rats, and in the chaos, the Mafia could loot all of the shops. Their plan is successful, and is captured by Channel 6 News. The Turtles catch wind of this, and when they get a direct call from April, who urges the Turtles to hurry and stop the miniature rat army. However, April is caught by Pinky after attempting to follow him home. The Turtles find the real Donatello, and set out on their mission of stopping his evil clone, which becomes way easier after the spiteful Rat King gives them Pinky's exact address as he's too salty about what happened to him previously in the episode. The episode ends with the Turtles defeating Pinky and reversing the effects of the clone machine, leaving the Turtles to go home happily, along with April. Planet of the Turtleoids is a two-part special that takes place directly after the whole clone situation regarding Donatello. It begins with the Turtles noticing strange mutagens in the city and figuring that Shredder and Krang are up to something yet again. It should be noted that during all of this, Donatello is becoming more and more distraught with the weird looks and discrimination the Turtles are getting lately on Earth, and wonders if there's any place where they could live without feeling like absolute freaks. Meanwhile, Shredder and Krang are communicating with each other, and I found that the best plan as of right now is to create other mutagens in order for them to do their dirty work, such as stealing precious items from museums or stealing technology so they can somehow get the Technodrome back up and running. I really wish they could just let that dream go, since it's clearly not working as of right now. They do decide to let loose two animals from the zoo in order to transform. However, a turtle-like creature, Crema, is seen releasing the exact animals they wanted before they could get to them, leaving Shredder and Krang to have no choice but to transform a bull and a mole instead. Nobody except for Vernon from Channel 6 News, figures the guy who's always in someone else's business, witnessed the releasing of the animals from the news. He quickly tells April and assumes it was one of the turtles. However, she's convinced that it wasn't, as the turtle that he spotted was only 3 feet tall. The Turtles are sent to investigate, and eventually are kidnapped by Crema himself and taken to a spaceship disguised as a business building and blast off into space. Meanwhile, April is captured by Bebop and Rocksteady and taken back to Shredder and Krang. They are hopeful that the Turtles will respond to their turtle comm. However, they don't leave the villains to believe that the Turtles may be gone for good this time. Back on Crema's spaceship, the Turtles are confused and restless as Crema explains to them that he and his other Turtleoids are experiencing problems, and he wanted to retrieve some people to help out. The Turtles quickly find that Crema's problem is a two-headed dragon, and Donatello realizes that he may be liking Crema's planet better than Earth since, well, they're all turtles. Meanwhile, Shredder, who's thinking that all of his problems are solved since he believes the Turtles to be gone, decides to make a new invention called Chrome Dome, which he's convinced will be able to conquer all now with the Turtles out of the picture. Alright, starting off right where we left off, Planet of the Turtleoids Part 2 begins with the Turtles landing in hot water with the entire Turtleoid community after Ground Chuck and Dirtbag, the evil mutants that Shredder and Krang created, leave the Turtleoids' home unprotected, seemingly by the Turtles who were the suspects of suspicion. The Turtles eventually defeat the two-headed dragon, only to find that it's just a robot controlled by corrupt city leaders who were tired with the economic system and wanted to overthrow the government. Once back on Earth, they defeat Shredder's plans for rebuilding the Technodrome into the mini Technodrome. The episode ends with Donatello coming to a very important life-changing revelation. He would never live on an alien planet that didn't offer him pizza or video games. Season 6 starts off cute with Adventure in Turtle Sitting. Begins with the Turtles zapped with an age-preserving machine meant for fruits and veggies. They begin to shrink into little baby turtles. Just look at them. They eventually fight Shredder, however. The babies aren't supposed to be there. They just follow April. They inevitably end up jumping into the ocean, which somehow reverses the effects of the gun.
We're growing big and our voices are changing. We found the antidote to the Revivify Ray.
And they end up defeating Shredder and ruling the day. The episode ends with the Turtles destroying the machine that made them baby turtles before Splinter can get home and get mad at them. We meet April's aunt Agatha in this later episode of Season 6, Sleuth on the Loose. Essentially, the Turtles are assigned to investigate a robber, and in the middle of it, Donatello creates an invention that is supposed to teleport them to the person stealing the items. However, it ends up backfiring and teleporting Agatha to them instead, and let me tell you, that innocent-looking woman sure knows how to kick some ass. Eventually, they're successful, and the episode ends with the Turtles waving goodbye to Agatha. Donatello is feeling angsty in Night of the Dark Turtle. It all begins when Donatello complains to Splinter and the other 3 turtles about how he's much smarter than them and shouldn't have to work his body as hard because he can just use his brain instead. This frustrates the turtles and causes mild disruption between their relationships. Later in the episode, while fighting, Donatello is shoved into a machine that electrocutes him until he eventually passes out.
Donatello!
When Donatello awakens, he takes on the persona much like Batman, wearing darker clothes, acting more brooding, and claiming that he can do everything by himself. Not only that, but Donatello's acting more aggressive than normal. His brothers are worried about him. However, when they express their concerns, Donatello hits them with a smoke bomb and then vanishes into thin air.
Shredder's out there somewhere.
Meanwhile, the audience has shown that several Triceratons have landed on Earth and are claiming it as property for their empire. They appear to be a type of dinosaur-like alien life form. The turtles are alerted of this. However, they are no match for the strange alien creatures, especially without their brother helping them. Donatello, in the meantime, is obsessed with finding Shredder, and once he does, he quite literally almost kills him. His brothers intervene, as they need Donatello back the way he was before the electrocution, as they know they don't stand a chance against the Triceratons without him. And if they don't stop them, then the entire world may become cattle. After stopping Donatello from killing Shredder, a scuffle begins. In the chaos, Donatello is briefly shocked again and regains his old persona, not remembering anything that happened and confused about his new costume. Donatello is brought up to speed and threatens the Triceratons, figuring out that they don't attack other planets that they assume are run by reptiles. Because of their threats, and Donatello claiming that he rules all the world, while looking quite menacing I might add, the Triceratons run for their mothers, fleeing the Earth and leaving the turtles with another victory under their belt. Because Shredder can't seem to defeat the turtles in this lifetime, as he's tried again and again and even again, he decides to go a different approach in The Legend of Koji. It begins with Shredder going back in time to ancient Japan, where he can finally defeat the Turtles and Splinter for real, that is, if he makes sure they never existed in the first place. He begins his journey by meeting his ancestor, Oroku Sansho, telling him that if he finds 2 specific objects in the woods, then he could have ultimate power and wealth. However, his ancestor is seemingly unimpressed by his proposition, leaving Shredder no choice but to dress up like his ancestor and lead his ninja followers into the woods himself. Once there, they run into a stray ninja, Homodo Koji, who just so happens to be Splinter's ancestor who started the Foot Clan to begin with. Meanwhile, back in normal time, Splinter takes the turtles to a museum, as he's felt a disruption in the natural force, only to find Shredder's time machine set way back, and he realizes what he's attempting to do. Splinter and the turtles enter the time machine.
A dose of nostalgia.
You're about to get it big time.
And arrive just in time to help Koji to defend himself against Shredder and all of his men. However, this proves to be quite easy, as when Shredder's men see the turtles, they believe them to be demons, causing them to run away in fear.
They are Tengus! Demons!
Eventually, Shredder shows off some futuristic abilities that he has as well. You know, technology and all that, leading his ninjas to believe that he has power greater than the demons that they may face. Meanwhile, the Turtles and Splinter assist Koji in finding the relic he also had come to the forest to find, in order to start the Ancient Foot Clan, being bombarded by Shredder pretty much the entire time. Shredder's ancestor arrives, revealing Shredder as an imposter and a fraud, while Koji claims large amounts of power, proclaiming the birth of the Foot Clan. The episode ends with Shredder conquered yet again, and the Turtles going back home to their original time. This episode begins with there being a mistake in a dimensional rift after one of Donatello's inventions messes up. It opened up a portal to probably like the worst place imaginable. Yeah, it's a prison cell from Dimension X. The 2 prisoners eagerly leaped through the portal, only to be swamped with Irma and Vernon. Once on Earth, the Turtles are alerted of something going wrong involving Donatello's portal, and discern that there may be a Dimension X intruders on Earth as we speak. They head out to investigate, only to find the convicts. However, they run away, after hearing that Donatello is the one in possession of the dimensional portal, as they want more help from their friends in prison. They break out 2 more convicts, and head to the National Guard in order to collect more weapons. The Turtles are swindled with a fake bomb for only a moment before they realize what the aliens are up to, and quickly follow in pursuit. They're eventually successful in sending the 4 convicts back to Dimension X, successfully getting Irma and Vernon back in the process. The episode ends with April reporting on the events of the day, congratulating the Turtles for saving the Earth again. The Turtles are fed up with the way that they're portrayed by the media, giving how much they do for the city, documented or not. Raphael specifically, who broods more than his brothers about their mistreatment. Meanwhile, Shredder gets together as many villains as he can think of, including Rat King, Slash, Bebop's pet turtle turned mutant in order to do chores assigned by Shredder, Leatherhead, Tempestra, a villain originally from a video game, Scumbug, a horrifying mutant roach creature, and Anthrax, an ant-like alien. He promises each and every villain that if they manage to kill the Turtles, then they will reap benefits beyond their wildest imagination. In order to lure the Turtles out of their lair, the Rogue group begins wreaking havoc throughout the city, and even antagonizing the Channel 6 building, as they're all well aware of the Turtles' connections with the humans that commonly reside inside. The Turtles fall for the bait, only to be extremely outmatched and captured. Splinter recruits some of their friends, and are successful in retrieving the Turtles. They then proceed to blow up the treasure that Shredder was planning on using to pay the rogues, leaving them to leave their mission, since fighting the Turtles will be worth nothing since they're not getting paid. The episode ends with the Turtles triumphant yet again. We are introduced to Dirk Savage, the mutant hunter, in this episode after a billionaire named A.J. Howard hires him due to his anti-mutant view on life and sees them as all evil weirdos. This upsets the Turtles greatly and are encouraged by Splinter that they could potentially change his mind if they prove that there are good and bad mutants objectively. Not all of them are evil. Their good graces are cut short, however, when some of their friends are captured, along with Michelangelo and Leonardo.
Sing it, buddy.
The other turtles decide to ask Mondo Gecko, their lizard brother, who lives next door, to voluntarily be captured while wearing a type of homing device in order for them to discover where Howard is keeping all the mutants that he captures. Once there, the turtles find that Howard is secretly a slug mutant wanting to create his own massive mutant army in order to control the entire human race. Donatello and Raphael decide to call up Dirk Savage for help, only to be attacked sooner than they were expecting. A battle ensues, ending with the entire building collapsing and blowing up. However, all of the mutants along with the turtles are able to jump to safety before any serious trouble occurs. The episode ends with Dirk Savage apologizing to the mutants for assuming that they were all bad before he heads off on his way. Invasion of the Krangazoids begins with Krang fed up more than usual about his minions' incompetence, so he decides to clone himself not once, not twice, but 6 times, ordering his Krangs to go steal things themselves. The turtles are alerted of multiple Krangs being spotted, so they decided to go check it out, only to find that they're not only miniature Krangs, but they slowly begin developing hands and break free of the original Krang's control. Growing more and more, they inevitably develop entire reptilian-like bodies, and decide that together they can take over the city and turn it into a miniature Dimension X. The turtles are successful in sending the Krangazoids back down to the Technodome, but not before they had already caused a small volcanic eruption, leaving the turtles to dump large amounts of water on the lava to keep it at bay. The episode ends with Krang sending the Krangazoids to what they assume to be Dimension X, but it's actually a strange limbo place, as Krang isn't in control of them and doesn't want them around anymore. This chaotic episode, Shredder Triumphant, begins with Splinter specifically telling the turtles not to interfere in Shredder's latest plan, as bad things will occur to them, but they don't listen to him. But hey, if I were told by a mutant rat ninja who meditates daily, has never been wrong before, that I shouldn't do something, I probably shouldn't do it. They were immediately captured and actually sent to Dimension X, where they're sold as mine workers. They're eventually able to escape their unfortunate situation after being the leaders of a rebellion, or successfully sticking it to the man, I like to say. They call Shredder and manipulate him into creating a portal for them to come back to Earth after making fun of them for not being able to win a fight against them fair and square. He opens up a portal and a battle ensues while Leonardo tinkers with the inner workings of the Technodrome. The episode concludes with a huge portal opening up and swallowing the Technodrome whole.
Why is it moving when no one's driving?
Leaving Shredder, Krang, Bebop, and Rocksteady stranded on Earth, merely escaping by a singular pickup truck. Season 8 starts off with Wrath of the Rat King, which begins with Krang being worried about his special weapon, the Shockwave, that is currently still stuck on the Technodrome. He calls his sergeant back in, Dimension X, who informs Krang that the Technodrome is currently floating in a black hole. This, at first, frightens Krang, as he thinks his precious weapon is lost forever to the massive beast that is space. However, he quickly realizes that he can just teleport the weapon to him and orders his sergeant to do so. However, because of some abnormalities, the Shockwave weapon lands in the city, and the police are worried that it's actually a bomb.
Nobody touch it! Send for the bomb squad!
Krang then decides that in order to get his precious weapon, he must mutate the Rat King's rats and have them infiltrate the police headquarters. Meanwhile, the turtles are getting more and more depressed with the news and the way that they're being viewed by the public almost on the daily basis. However, they're eventually called to deal with the massive rat break-in and are successful in defeating them. This time with April filming the entire thing and successfully putting the turtles in the correct light. However, the episode ends with April's boss throwing her into the mailroom, as he's always against the turtles, and honestly, probably gets good ratings writing controversial articles about the turtles causing disruption and chaos throughout the city. State of Shock begins with the turtles being reprimanded more than usual by the news outlets, claiming that they're the root cause of ninja thefts and crimes, even after the turtles are successful in stopping these crimes on the daily. It gets to the point where it isn't only the news targeting them, but the US Armed Forces, who show up to their lair thinking they'll be an easy catch. The turtles easily evade them, however, and ask April to keep a lookout on their behalf. Meanwhile, the turtles decide to go after the real ninja and learn of their leader, Megavolt. In an attempt to figure out what's going on from the inside, they volunteer to join their group and help them with their schemes. This backfires massively when they're found out, but hurts even more when April is a part of the newscast and sees the turtles red-handed with the villains. She's extremely conflicted, however, and still comes to their aid with the information that she found regarding Alex Winter, who turned himself into Megavolt. The US official isn't swayed, as apparently Alex Winter at one point was a strong soldier, one of the best that they've ever had. However, he can't deny that after the horrible life that he's had, he would be able to have his electric abilities and mutations. Meanwhile, Alex Winter vows revenge on the way his body has been treated, and he transforms into a giant robotic insect and heads off to create chaos in the city. Seems a little dramatic, but okay. After hearing all the evidence, the US official finally sides with the turtles, and they're successful in defeating Alex Winter. Turns out the way to squash an electrified bug is to throw water on it repeatedly, and also turn off its power from the inside.
To strike!
Oh, it can't be. I'm powerless.
The episode ends with the officer, Knight, letting the turtles know that if they need any help in the future, to just give them a call. In this episode, the turtles are introduced to Havoc, which stands for Highly Advanced Variety of Creatures, which is essentially a club for mutants who feel as though they've been shunned by humans. Their mission is to protect other mutants from discrimination, and the turtles find them after they successfully defend the turtles from human wrath multiple times. One situation being the police attempting to arrest the turtles after they stop a robbery. Once at the Havoc base, they're introduced to their leader, Titanus, who offers the turtles a spot. However, Leonardo and Michelangelo aren't sold, as after talking to April, there have apparently been lab break-ins with nothing stolen ever since Havoc have made themselves known. They think that might be strange. The two decide to leave and investigate, while Raphael and Donatello remain with the new mutants. Michelangelo and Leonardo witness two of the mutants that had saved them previously in the episode performing a lab type of experiment and turning a regular human into a mutant. The two mutants notice the turtles, and a brief scuffle takes place, ending in a fire allowing the mutants to escape. The turtles easily put out that fire and head back to Havoc's base in order to warn the others. Meanwhile, Havoc was meant to have a meeting with Channel 6 about their campaign. However, this quickly turns deadly, as they nab all the Channel 6 workers and are planning on turning them into mutants as well, also giving Raphael and Donatello their own ultimatum in the sense that they can either join them or they can choose death, to which the two choose death as they would never assist in the business of the evil mutants. They're sent to a trash compactor. April and the others are joined by Michelangelo and Leonardo, and are able to release the other turtles from the clutches of death just in time.
The humans doing us any favors lately?
You were saying? Burn? I don't believe it.
Okay.
A battle ensues, and the turtles are successful in getting rid of the mutant transmitter. However, the episode ends with them developing a new enemy in the streets, Titanus. Immediately following the last episode, the turtles are going after Titanus heavy. However, they're not successful due to Michelangelo messing up their plans and acting more spacey and dumb than usual. Titanus decides that he'll go after humans in order to bring the turtles down, as they seem to be incredibly attached to him. He breaks out a known criminal from prison and turns him into the mutant Synapse, who appears to take on many different forms and is made of dark matter. The turtles are struggling greatly against them, mostly due to Michelangelo yet again. Being fed up with their brother, they tell Michelangelo to sit out until he starts acting more seriously towards their missions. The remaining turtles go off by themselves and are unsuccessful till they find out that Synapse can be harmed by energy reflected off of him. Meanwhile, Michelangelo, who accidentally steals a jet in his alone time, comes to his brother's rescue, allowing them to broadcast Synapse into space and bother the remaining mutants, causing them to shoot at their own equipment. After they are successful in tricking the mutants into harming their own equipment, Michelangelo apologizes to his brothers for being childish, to which his brothers are thankful. They also discover the weapon that Titanus is going after, called the Flux Transformer. The episode ends with the turtles promising to bring Titanus down once and for all. The episode immediately following shows the turtles watching the Flux Transformer and wondering what Titanus would want with it. It seems to be a device that can potentially warp time and space, which would normally be a good weapon for a villain to have, but not really one who seems to only be obsessed with turning humans into mutants. Suddenly, the Flux Transformer is seen being moved by the government, much to the turtles' dismay, as they would really rather keep an eye on it just in case Titanus shows up. April tells the turtles that she can follow it while they go off into the city and try to get rid of the other Havoc mutants. Unfortunately, April quickly loses her trail on it after it's flown away attached to a helicopter. After hearing about the Transformer being out of reach to them, the turtles decide to break into the government computer center in order to find out where they could possibly be taking it. However, in doing so, they set off alarms and are caught by Krakus, a mysterious man who seems out of this world. No, literally. He begins fighting the turtles, and during their scuffle, he tells the turtles that he's from the future and he came back in time to chase and defeat Titanus, who also happens to be from the future. In their future world, Titanus was nearly successful in taking over the entire world using his mutants. However, he was found out and all mutants were outlawed, being arrested on sight. In a panic, Titanus jumped into his time machine and went back in time in order to continue his mission and live out his success. April suddenly walks in on the battle, wanting to back up the turtles, allowing Krakus to see her in the flesh for the first time. Krakus seems amazed to see her, telling her that she saved his father's life, and if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't be alive right now. He trusts April, and eventually opens up to the possibility that the turtles aren't bad mutants. The group eventually leaves to go after Titanus together. Meanwhile, Titanus catches wind of Krakus being on the same time frame as him, and sends a squad specifically to take care of him so that he can continue his search for the Flux Transformer. Back with the turtles, they eventually figure out where the Transformer is being located. However, they're reprimanded by the mutants Titanus sent over to kill Krakus, and are all nearly killed while April is kidnapped and taken to a mill where she's supposedly going to be killed as well. Whew. Gotta take a breath. That was a lot. Krakus begs to be turned into a mutant so that he can save April, and you best believe that his dream came true. Not only was he turned into a mutant, but he was turned into pretty much the most powerful one seen yet.
Whoa, dude, you are one mean mutant.
No! To rescue April!
None of the other mutants' abilities stand a chance, not even molten steel. He successfully saves April from Titanus, finally is able to use the Flux Transformer as a time machine, allowing him to summon his mutant army from the future. Krakus, along with the Turtles' help, are able to shove Titanus into the portal and send him to prehistoric times, letting him be doomed forever. The episode ends with a warning from April, reminding the Turtles that while Titanus might be taken care of, his weird mutants he created, while in their time frame, are not. Episode 8 ends with a banger Turtle Trek. Krang, Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady attempt to swindle the Turtles for the last time after manipulating an alien from Dimension X, telling him to ask the Turtles for help, and then taking them on a dangerous path throughout the dimension in order to distract them and hopefully fatally injure them. In the end, the alien is revealed to be tricking the Turtles, however he ends up helping them in the end, since he was never necessarily on Krang's side. He's just trying to save his own ass. In helping the Turtles, they manage to trap Krang and the others in Dimension X forever. The episode ends with a giant tentacle creature attempting to eat the Technodrome, and Krang screaming for his life. After this episode, we don't hear much from Krang, Shredder, Bebop, or Rocksteady ever again. Season 9 begins with the Turtles reviewing the tapes of them fighting Megavolt when they notice a strange creature lurking in the shadows near them, watching their every move but never getting involved. They're curious about this and decide to go on a side quest to find out who it could possibly be. Meanwhile, we meet Dreg, who's introduced in this episode and will be replacing Krang and Shredder as the new top villain from now on. Dreg appears to be an alien warlord who has minions of his own, such as his second-in-command, High Tech, and his army, the Techno Gang. His real mission is to strip the Earth of all of its gold, as it's important for his master plan that we have yet to find out. Dreg sends his Techno Gang down to Earth's surface to begin excavation, causing the Turtles to pause their search and deal with the unknown intruders. During their scuffle, the masked figure comes to help them, I guess, in his own way. The Turtles aren't impressed, and they're still confused because even during all of that, they never saw who it actually was, and the Techno Gang got away, so honestly, there was little success in general. Later, Donatello expresses worry about the mutagen as he's been finding abnormalities in the substance, and is confused as to how it may impact the Turtles in the near future. However, he's interrupted by the security alarm to their lair going off. They rush to capture the intruder, only to find out that it's the masked figure that they've been trying to find the entire episode. They demask him, and find that it's a teenage boy named Carter who has been in search of Splinter in order to become a student and learn the ancient technique of the Foot Clan. Splinter agrees to let him in, much to the shock of the Turtles. Meanwhile, April, along with Channel 6, help the announcement of the town's new police robots, who are supposedly able to detect good from bad intentions. Dreg hijacks these robots, rewiring them to be blood-hungry, dangerous machinery weapons. He then proceeds to come down to Earth himself in order to steal the gold and make sure things are done properly. During all of this, Carter is at the Turtles' lair and was instructed not to touch anything, especially not the mutagen Donatello was investigating. And you know what Carter did? You know exactly what Carter did. When running to aid the Turtles, he accidentally spilled some on his hand. How do you accidentally spill the one thing in the entire sewers you were told to definitely not touch or even get near?
I gotta roll!
Anyway, he joins the Turtles in their fight against robots and the Techno Gang. However, Dreg decides to capture him, thinking it will be an easy ransom. He'll be able to get the Turtles to do whatever he wants. However, this is not the case, and Carter mutates into, well, that. After his transformation, he's successful in helping the Turtles defeat Dreg and creating a new arch-nemesis. The episode ends with Carter showing back up at the lair the next day with no clue of his mutant transformations, leaving the Turtles to believe an unknown mutant came to their rescue, even though it was just Carter. Alright, this later episode in Season 9 begins with Dreg successfully fooling the world into being on their side, and claims he's building a star shield in order to protect them from unknown alien encounters. However, the Turtles and April blatantly film proof that he's completely lying, and is using the shield for something much more sinister. However, April informs the Turtles that because of their current unpopularity with the human population, literally no news station will publish anything they have to bring to the table, nor do they believe what they have to say about Dreg. However, because of the importance of the matter, the Turtles decide to head to their own broadcasting tower in order to alert the general public of the potential danger. Meanwhile, Carter is cornered by the Techno Gang wanting him to mutate.
Bet on it!
We soon learn, after an encounter with two people from the future, that Carter is gaslit into believing that he's a part of Dreg's army since Dreg had created a robot clone of him that literally killed the Turtles, allowing Dreg to take over the entire world with Carter his second in command. Once the Turtles find out about this, they're appalled, and when they go back to their time frame, they're able to escape the clone, leaving the real Carter the ability to defeat the clone and successfully push back Dreg and his advances on Earth. The episode ends with the Turtles making a promise to defeat Dreg in order to aid the humans of the future. future, as they watch the two fighters from the future play in their sandbox as children. Immediately following this last episode, we find the Dreg and the Techno Gang still swaying the general public to their side, claiming that the Turtles are evil, and ultimately the bad guys. The Turtles don't make anything worse when Raphael and Michelangelo mutate into huge buff versions of themselves due to the faulty mutagen, causing more chaos in the crowd. Dreg easily able to label himself as the good guy, when his people are successful in shooting away the Turtles back into the sewers. Meanwhile, Dreg is shown obsessing over his new crystal, in which he wants to use in his evil master plan, when suddenly Doomquest arrives, along with his lieutenant Draconis. They are persistent in claiming the crystal as their own, and even claim to be the real good guys. A game of hot potato ensues, with Michelangelo stealing it, and then Draconis managing to steal it from him. During all of this, the Turtles realize that the crystal causes them to demutate almost immediately, leading them to believe that they may need this crystal in order to maintain their calm, less threatening demeanor. After mutating to their monster state multiple times, the Turtles are realizing that they're getting more and more aggressive in general.
Hey, back off! He's mine! In your dreams, jerkweed!
And would rather not continue messing with the mutagen in that way. Eventually, Carter and the Turtles are able to send Doomquest and Dreg deep into a dark dimension after smashing their precious crystal to smithereens. The episode ends with April finally being able to release the footage of Dreg giving a speech to his people about how they plan on using the humans to take over the world, leaving the people of the city to feel stupid for ever trusting them in the first place. Dreg is seen plotting his next move, as he can sense that not all of his crystal has been destroyed. He knows the Turtles have figured out that something about the crystal is able to stabilize their mutations most of the time. However, they have no idea why, and don't know how to do it on command yet. He plans on stealing their shards and mechanically replicating them until he's able to create yet another crystal.
Capable of transporting anything from one end of the universe to the other.
Meanwhile, the Turtles try with failure to fix their unstable mutations, and just when they think they have it on lock, Leonardo ends up transforming into a bigger monster than before and running away from the lair. The Turtles ask April not to film Leonardo's silly little moment, however she sadly informs them that it's currently being broadcasted live. Because of this, Dreg sees it and sends his people after the Turtles. They manage to fight him off, but not without him taking his own little piece of Leonardo's mutated shell, which will somehow grant him unimaginable power. The episode ends with the Turtles having to lock Leonardo up, and Carter vowing to help them find a cure, with Dreg still hot on the hunt for his intergalactic teleporter mission and conquering Earth once and for all. The Turtles are still trying to rescue Leonardo from his mutated state, but every time they think they get close, he gets sick again and goes on a rampage.
Easy, Leonardo.
Meanwhile, Dreg plans on using the piece of mutated shell to make a concoction that will permanently mutate the Turtles to extinction. After witnessing Dreg instructing his microbots to create the mutation ray, April realizes that Dreg's plan is to make Leonardo impossible to deal with by mutating him. However, she's caught, and she's unable to help. Leonardo is hit with the ray, and his brothers frantically search for chemicals in Dreg's lab that would allow them to transform him back to normal. They barely escape Dreg's clutches, and manage to turn Leonardo back into what they think is normal. However, the episode ends with Dreg muttering that Leonardo will never be back to normal, as his genetic structure has forever been changed. Because of his failures in defeating the Turtles, Dreg decides to call up Shredder and Krang in order to find out more about their weaknesses. At first, they disagree, as they've been wanting to take on the Turtles themselves for quite some time. However, they eventually agree to mutual world domination. Later in the episode, Dreg confesses to the Turtles that he actually wanted them to somehow figure out how to stabilize their mutations, as he just wants to use their power for himself and drain them of their mutagenic capabilities. Shredder and Krang begin to turn on Dreg, demanding that he transform them into powerful mutants instead. Because of this, Dreg takes away Shredder's armor, and even absorbs Krang's brain into his own, allowing him to become much more powerful and intelligent. The episode ends with Dreg successful in not only sucking the power out of the Turtles' enemies, but also out of the Turtles themselves. During the transfer of power, Shredder is able to escape while Dreg isn't looking. The Turtles still attempt to fight Dreg, however they've lost all of their ninja skills and will likely die soon due to the loss of their life power. April calls Carter in order to help, who recently went back to college in order to study science after they had successfully gotten rid of his mutations. Carter tries his best, however he's no match against Dreg and his minions. Distraught, he's given wise words from Splinter, claiming that if he really needs to, he could potentially mutate himself again in order to become stronger. Meanwhile, Shredder is successful in recusing Krang. However, he may still die, as Dreg has announced his plans to teleport a piece of the sun onto Earth, creating a second sun and killing every living human if they don't choose to submit to him as their new leader. Carter realizes that in order for him to transform into a mutant again, he's going to need some of the Turtles' power. However, because they don't have any, he figures out a way to teleport the past Turtles to his present in order to take their energy instead. However, he's also given a warning that if he doesn't return them to their correct time period within 24 hours, then both sets will cease to exist. The episode ends with the past Turtles rescuing the present and allowing Carter to mutate once again. The group attempts to leave Dreg's ship. However, they're stopped by a gigantic robot right before their freedom. Both sets of turtles, along with April, manage to escape Dreg's spaceship, leaving April to rush to the authorities for help. Dreg decides to take over the Earth and make it his new home base, using his monsters and equipping them with weapons in order to infiltrate the human race. He's still ultimately wanting to take over the Earth by threatening officials with the idea of the sun coming to Earth. Meanwhile, the past turtles go off to fight the new monster threats, even though they're slowly but surely running out of time. Dreg supposedly gets his chip that will allow him to teleport sunspots to Earth, and he believes he's successful in that, until Donatello reveals to him that the chip he was eventually successful in acquiring is actually fake, and the sunspot are still not on Earth, and he's still not even close to being able to take over. With the help of the past turtles, they are able to capture Dreg and take away his built-up power that he sucked from the turtles, Shredder and Krang. They send Shredder and Krang back to Dimension X and send Dreg back to his respective planet as well, even though he should be in federal prison. The episode ends with the past turtles successfully being teleported back to their time frame, and Carter being able to travel to the future in order for them to cure him of his mutated genetics once and for all. The last episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1987, Divide and Conquer, begins with the turtles being attacked by yet another villain. They talk amongst themselves, realizing that this is like the 5th time they've been attacked and stolen from for literally no apparent reason. Meanwhile, we learn that Dreg is promising these aliens wealth and success if they're able to battle the turtles and survive for at least 90 seconds. However, after several aliens are successful, Dreg ends up just absorbing them into himself in order to gain all of their powers. In order to defend themselves against the new threat, the turtles decide to travel to the old Technodrome in order to retrieve Krang's old body that is nearly indestructible. However, upon figuring out this plan, they run into more trouble as Dreg announces to the brothers that he's kidnapped April. April, being the one human on Earth that the turtles trust the most, is clearly upset by this news. In order to get her back, the brothers split up, with Michelangelo and Donatello going after Krang's old body, and Raphael and Leonardo going after April. Michelangelo and Donatello are successful in retrieving the body, and join their brothers to throw Dreg into a portal to Dimension X.
It's gonna explode any second!
The episode ends with a heartfelt message from Splinter, telling the turtles that they have come so far that he isn't qualified to be their teacher anymore, as they are now equals. That is one very cool way to end a series. And there we wrap up an all-time favorite, setting the scene for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise for life, and blessing the hearts of millions. Thank you for joining me on this pizza-filled, crime-fighting, mutating adventure. I hope you all have awesome days, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Leave a comment about which turtle is your favorite and why. See ya!